Are you looking for something fun and unique to give away in your merch orders or at your shows? Look no further. Hit me up today to order 1-inch buttons for your band, label, or other project. High-quality metal pinback buttons for your friends and fans' battle jackets, messenger bags, and guitar straps. $33 for 100 buttons shipped in the U.S. Message me on IG at Everything Remade to get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast about growth as much as I hope it is about music. My name is Elias, and I recently won the raffle while donating to a charity that is supporting people in Gaza during the current genocide and occupation. And so I'm very grateful that Edie has offered me the opportunity to come and host my own episode with them today. We're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects today. Some stuff political, some stuff music, probably some stuff personal. So I hope that you're able to enjoy and learn a little bit and find out some more about yourself in the process. Everyone, you're listening to Redirect by Coma Regalia from their Snag split that they put out last fall. Absolutely fantastic piece of music. Snag side rips as well, but Redirect is definitely one of my favorite recent Coma tracks. Hope you enjoy it. I kind of wanted to start it off talking about music, basically, and seeing if there was anything that's come out this year that you're really excited about.
Yeah, I think it's wild. The past couple of releases that I've listened to that really were I had high expectations of. That I listened to were both on Secret Voice, and it's both sort of Middleman Records tangential bands, right? Heavenly Blue being we had that split with Youth Novel, and then Infant Island we released their first LP. So
right,
those two records pretty much blew me away, and I expected that, right? And they both came from Secret Voice, so that was kind of okay. Not that surprised me either. But what I will say, in contrast to that, because I knew I was going to be into those, I knew I was going to like those, is how much stuff that I'm finding from people that I don't know where they came from. I've never met them or their friends. You know what I mean? A lot of this stuff, it's if you've been around long enough, it's the new bands that pop up. It's some people that your friends knew and some people that their friends knew. And it's just wonderful how all these bands are just popping up as if they're discovering this completely on their own without this olive branch of connectivity to previously known bands and quantities, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's there's some stuff that I just reviewed in my zine, and one of the bands I am not gonna remember the name of the band. It's one of those bands that the style has come back of having like 15 words in one band name and they're all smushed together. So I can't I can't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
I just reviewed this in my zine, and it's like if people were reading like the first issue of Combustion, where I was chatting about how frustrated I've become with like how long it it is expected, like, and for good reason, like, but labels are putting a lot of money into these vinyl releases and stuff, so like I get it.
Yeah.
But as a musician, it's like super frustrating when you're like, well, this is a split that like it took like a year to get this together, and now
Right.
it's in the plant and it's going to be another year before people hear it. Like, it's frustrating. I
Yeah.
wrote this whole thing about it in the first issue of Combustion, and this band whose name I'm just like blanking on for reasons I stated, they're from Texas, and it's like we recorded this in a garage on April 5th, and then they released it on April 7th, and I'm like, that is so fucking what that I'm here
That's
for
awesome.
that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, is it Bullets Between Tongues?
you're probably right. It's like the
Is that
blue.
something?
It's is it like the all blue cover with like the like the like clip art from like the British Museum or something?
Oh,
No, it's
I don't
something
know
else then.
actually. It might be.
Yeah, my phone is like on the charger across the room, so I can't look that up. I don't think it was that though.
Mhm.
It's like even death could not stop us or something like that. It's
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean,
Okay.
yeah, this like like it's like I said, I reviewed it in the third issue of that, and that's coming on May 3rd. So
Okay.
I'm trying to do like the brain math on when this episode will air, like whatever, 2 Mondays from now is this will air. So like
Yeah.
it'll still be a minute before that. Maybe I'll just like do an addendum at the end, or maybe not. Maybe I'll just,
I think that's it's still April. I think that's the 22nd.
yeah. Well, I'm pretty close with that name. So if you Google that name, Bandcamp, and then look for that cover that I described, it's like I spend enough time like making old flyers and stuff, searching through the like British library like woodcut archives and stuff that became like public domain at some point, that like I'm like, you can't sneak one of those by me. Like, I know where y'all got that graphic. But yeah, really really cool band. And like I just yeah, I mean, I just keep finding stuff like that, and I keep finding stuff that's weirder, like
Mm.
there's this band Ruthie Toothless out of Pittsburgh, and like I had been friends with this person on Facebook, and I did not know it was their band, right? But I asked Sam from Short Fictions, "Do you know who this band is?" And Sam was like, "I have no idea." And Sam is like the Pittsburgh aficionado. So I was
Yeah.
like, "This is just a wildflower, right?" It's just like, but yeah, that's a really cool band. Like, just weird stuff. Like, reminded me of Dave Wenger's bands, like Daddy's
Oh,
Hands and stuff. Like, so, and that's like, I cite Dave Wenger as like probably my biggest guitar influence. So like, when it gets weird in a Dave Wenger way, I'm like, yeah, you got me.
you're all in.
Yeah. What about you? Like, I know you
I
love the
mean,
Heavenly Blue. I've seen you post about the Heavenly Blue. Like, we all love that. Like, that
oh
record
my God.
rips.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just already been like such an insane year, and there's just so many things that I'm really excited about already. Like same with you. Like I think actually maybe differently. Like I knew to expect like some of the albums that were coming to like blow me away, but like even still, like Infant Island, like that album like genuinely floored me. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
what that band sounds like, and I know what they've been doing, and I'm pretty sure I've probably heard some of those songs live like a while back or whatever. But yeah, that album like sticks in my brain. Like I listen to it probably once a week. Like it's still like one of those things that I'm just like really holding a candle for. The Frail Body album was incredible. Like it's funny to joke about being impatient and like waiting for bands to hurry up, like when they're releasing like music and stuff sometimes, especially like bands that take some time and like, they want to live and do all that stuff. And like one of those things where the payoff is so worth it was like the Frail Body record, for me at least, just because it, In Brief Memoriam came out in like 2019, 2018 or something, probably. And so like to wait that long between like LPs, it feels like a long time,
Mm-hmm.
But like just listening, like each time I've listened to it, I've just like been jumping between songs that are my favorites. I've been like feeling like a huge mix of emotions. Like it's also like one of those albums that like came at like a really particular time in my life, because like so much of the context of the album is like, how do you live without someone? Like how do we live in this world that feels empty and like all this stuff? And it's been like with everything going on, like Gaza and the genocide, and then like I've lost family members recently and stuff. It's just like one of those albums that it feels like it came to me, it came for me. I know like they were planning on putting out, we all knew it was coming, but it just really felt like it felt personal in like a way that I felt like it was one of those things that when you're like 15 and you find that record and you're like, no one else knows about this, like this is clearly just for me. Like you feel protective, like I'm part of that like secret club because it feels so special to you. And so getting that from like a band who's genuinely like super sick, who I've never gotten to see, I'm hoping to see them this year, is really cool. And then of course the Heavenly Blue album is bananas. Like it's just like me and I think Biggie and some other people have been joking about like the return of the thinking man screamo. And like something where it's like I love like overt political affectations to music and everything, and equally as much I love the obfuscated, like you need to like decipher this on your own, like kind of like cryptic but not completely like hidden, like esoteric style of music that Heavenly Blue is like super into making. And I really love that Heavenly Blue album. And conversely, like there's this emo math rock band from Vancouver, I think, that's like Surrey, Vancouver, or something like that. And like there's probably a bunch of other people who like I talk to regularly who know about them already, because I genuinely have not shut up about them since I found them last year. But they're called Girl Snails. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's all one word.
Oh, okay.
And I asked the band like, hey, how do you pronounce your name? And they're like, whatever feels right. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
But they put out their first album in, I want to say February. It's called California Kickball. It's 6 tracks, like about like a 30, 40-minute runtime. It's like almost perfect, in my opinion. It's like honestly some of like the best, I don't want to say emo and I don't want to say math rock, but like one of the best versions of like that kind of perfect fusion of the two that I've heard in like a very, very long time. And
That's awesome.
It's really awesome. And I think because it reminds me of math rock in the way that math rock kind of existed as like a sort of kid brother to jazz in a lot of ways, like people who liked punk and were super into jazz records, like kind of accidentally math rock happened, right? Because they want to try different time signatures and things like that. And like that, as much as like there's a lot of other emo math bands who like do really cool stuff, like that is the one that feels most like the origin point of that, in the sense that it feels kind of like a jazz record at times. And I really, really, really am into that.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. Like I like bands like Tycho or Chone or however you say that. Like I like that fine. I don't like seek it out and listen to it, but I do like, it'll come on a playlist or something and I'm like, this is good. But there's something about that where it's like you all are actually just like this sounds too in control. Like, does that make sense? Is that what you're getting at with this band? It sounds like the jazziness is sort of just that, like, tension that creates, that it could fall apart, but it just doesn't.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you talk about like the in controlness of it, because there is like a lot of really like it's funny, right? How much of a juxtaposition there is between like math rock chords and like Midwest emo and all that, having to be such like such a difficult style of music to play, right? So there does need to be a semblance of control, and yet it's paired with this like with emo so often, like this like kind of breakdown, like losing grip, like style of music. So the juxtaposition is interesting, but it's really, I guess I think that you're right, and that I really like that there's, as much as like the vocals have tension, the music has its own kind of like lack of control, even though it sounds really clean. And I don't know, and it's just the vocalist, like she's not like a jazz singer. I don't know much about this band. I don't think she's like a jazz singer, but she has a style that's more in line with like if like Everyone Asked About You like grew up with their parents' Sinatra records. You know what I mean? Like it's like one of the it's really cool. Like there's like a classical nature to like how she does her vocal runs and like how she picks her timing in the song, because she's really about like enunciating, which is like, you know, in emo sometimes like that kind of gets like glossed over. Like they want to make sure they're yelling clear enough so that people can hear, but like she's really like, there's a clarity to like the way that she sings with the way she writes that's like just super interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've just been, I genuinely, that, like I said, I think that album came out in like February or something. I don't think that I've gone more than 2 days without listening to it. Like, I've been incredibly obsessed with it.
Yeah, I know what I'm
in
listening
a very
to.
unhealthy way, I think.
Oh, I mean, it's music, you know, it's not,
Yeah.
I guess it could be unhealthy, but I don't know. Like,
yeah.
No, it's not like you're not listening to it until your ears are bleeding or something. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, maybe one day I'll see how far I can push myself.
Just one 36-hour session turned as loud as you can bear.
Yeah, until like literally like all my thoughts are just in the tune of like the first 3 songs.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
There's something that I've been trying to work out with this one record where it's just like I want something like, you know, it's like I get fascinated with stuff like I get fascinated with my own headcanon of like band origins. So like Hum, for example, right?
Okay.
Like imagine you're one of the people in that band and you get together and you start putting the songs together and you're like you know, and you're like fucking going for it, right?
Yeah.
And then nobody knows like what's gonna come out of this person's mouth, like what they're gonna go for, and then it's just this really soft vocal, and you're like, this should have sounded like Helmet. Or this should have sounded like, you know, like all these other things, right? But this came out, and you're like, fuck. Like, that took like guts in a way, right? So like, and just like Primus, like imagine that guy coming over your house and being like blah, 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 with the bass, and then with this fucking cartoon character voice coming out. Like, how did you arrive at this, you know? And I've been working, I hear with this album that I wrote, like it's done, like it's totally done. And like the vocal patterns are kind of there. They're pretty much there. And like, and I want to do something that's different. And I'm like, I try this, I try that. And I'm like, I'm not stuck in as much as like I could just do it how I do literally anything else and it would be fine. But like, I'm just like, this has to, I want stuff to challenge me like that, you know, like something that where it's just like, where did that come from? Like, so yeah, I mean, you know, I've been listening to some different things that sort of touch that in a way or whatever, but yeah, it's just, it sounds really cool. And then yeah, it's just it's like I think as listeners a lot of the time we just we, we just take what we get coming out of the speakers at face value, and like we should, because like that's what the band presented to us, and that's what that was their intention. Like at this point, it's not a mistake that the voice sounds like that or whatever. It's intentional, right?
Right.
But like,
Yeah, they recorded it, so.
yeah, exactly. But like, I get back into that. Like, what must have that been like when this?
Yeah.
And was anybody? Because we like, if you've been in a few bands, sometimes you've had that thing where you're like, yeah, this, like you had one of your friends audition or however you want to put it, come over and give it a shot, and you're just like, yeah, that doesn't work for what we're
Yeah.
trying to do, like, and it's kind of for that, by that metric, it's kind of interesting to think like, oh, I wonder if any of these bands, if this almost didn't happen because somebody else was like, well, we really like want something heavier,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah, no.
what did we miss because that did happen? What kind
Right.
of weird stuff did we not get? But
Yeah. I mean, you don't really hear about those stories that often too, right? You hear stuff about maybe like bigger bands that have had like crazy pedigrees or whatever, right? Like they're like, oh, like there's stuff that they're working on together, and then you see it in like a blurb or someone tweets about it or whatever, right? And then you never hear about it again. But you're right. There's just like so many things where it's like, if the bassist had actually been the vocalist,
yeah,
like who knows how different this all could have been.
yeah,
Because you see that in bands sometimes. Like I think recently I didn't listen to all of it, but I was thinking about Maddie from Year of the Knife went on Hardcore this week, and which is super exciting, because God, I remember when that shit happened, I was like, everyone was just absolutely freaked out. So the fact that she's like up and walking and talking and like fully cognitive again is like,
yeah,
the cool, like it's just incredible.
yeah.
But like, she wasn't originally she wasn't the original vocalist for Year of the Knife. And then here she comes, and like, they replaced their vocalist, and she is like, it's like this band's now been elevated in a completely different way. And it's
Right.
so cool. And so there's so many of those, like we see the success stories, obviously. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I guess like the what would have beens would also be like really interesting to see.
Yeah. I think like every once in a while you get a band where somebody will sing like one or two odd songs, and you're like, it is a good damn thing that is not the main vocalist. Like the Goo Goo Dolls is the best example of that I can think of. Like those songs.
Wait, who was it?
The Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh yeah.
Right? Those songs that bass player sings like are so bad. Like it's just like we're not even acknowledging those. Like I think one of them is like the last song on a record, and it's like you just don't listen to that. You're just like, yeah.
That's really funny. It's funny that you bring up the Google Dolls, because the other day I was in a Discord that I'm in, and someone just like randomly was like, man, it's crazy to think about what the first Goo Goo Dolls records sound like, and they posted one. I've never listened to like pre-90s Goo Goo Dolls. I didn't know that they were just like a straight up like punk band.
Yeah, it's like Jimmy Eat World, right? Their first album was like not Fat Records, but it's like it had a lot of like D beat and stuff, like
interesting
D beat songs, and yeah, Jimmy Eat World was and then Static Prevails was kind of like they're crossing over, and then there's Clarity, and then they kind of like, it's weird. Jimmy Eat World's one of those bands where it's like, I've said this before, where it's like, so like Fire Hose is one of my favorite bands, like, but like they're I believe it's their last record, it is not that great. And I thought about it, I'm like, would I take another not that great Fire Hose album as opposed to like no more Fire Hose albums? Like, absolutely, right? And I look at Jimmy Eat World the same way, because like all of their albums have been fine, and it's like, it's cool to like get another Jimmy Eat World album, but like I'm never gonna hear a Jimmy Eat World album that like where I listen to Clarity and I'm just like, holy shit, like, and like that they're I don't think they're capable of making an album that does that at this point, like the way
Yeah.
their style has morphed and whatnot, you know. But yeah,
Yeah. And
it's just
also
like,
how different they are as people,
yeah,
like
for
in
sure.
general from like that time.
Yeah. I mean, which it's like, you know, it's I don't mean any disrespect by that. What I was
No,
getting
of
at is
course.
just like, would I rather have zero new Jimmy World albums or one that maybe it's not for me anymore, but
Yeah.
I still will listen to it and be like, yeah, I enjoyed that for the, you know, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those like, oh, it's cool to see that they're still, they're still making it work and like it still sounds, it's obviously different from like when a band like comes back together and what's the who am I thinking, the like everything that happened with the Refused, right? Like that whole thing. And I don't know if that's like an unpopular thing to say, but like I just remember everyone being so in love with The Shape of Punk to Come. And then like I listened to it and I was like, this is cool. I don't know if it's like particularly for me, but I could see its importance. And then they put out that other record, like when they did that reunion, and the reunion was like a cash grab. And I was like, no, this should have not happened. Like
Yeah.
it's okay, guys.
When Shape of Punk to Come came out, I hated it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like such a bold statement. This is like so like this is so cocky to say. And like in hindsight, I think the album's fine. And in hindsight, I think it's produced fine. But like this is like if an album sounds like that today, like I don't bat an eye. But like
Right.
for to be like this is the shape of punk to come, and it's like almost like they were right in a way because this is like a lot like, but like it sounded like what we would call like, you know, we would come to know as like axe effects, like, you know,
Right.
guitar input like programs and
Mm.
like shit, what's the term? I mean, I don't know. I'm like literally looking at a doll right now and I can't. But like it was like it sounded like they weren't. It sounded like this was not recorded with actual guitar amps. This sounds like it was recorded with like, you know, MIDI tones and stuff. And
Right.
I was just like not. I was just definitely not about that after like, you know, Chaos is Me and Dance Tonight, you know, had just come out.
Right.
And like the albums of that time that were coming out, I was like not for this like super clean sounding, like everything was like, you know, it's super immaculate and like not very dangerous sounding, you know, like
Yeah.
now I'm like, yeah, it's you know, it's a good album. And it was forward thinking, like as far as like the the like dynamics of the album, etc. But like, yeah, I don't know, reading about a little bit about it sort of on accident, like only just like in the last couple years, it's wild to think that it like none of those songs were like actually songs. Like they just they like you can read about it. It's like they just went into the studio and just recorded like parts and just
Right.
studio magicked them together later.
The
Like
pre garage band
yeah, I
in a
mean
lot of ways.
basically, like you can read about it. Like it's like the drummer would just like record like a drum beat and they'd be like, "Ooh, this is," and they'd put some guitars over and they'd be like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." And they'd be like, "This is worth holding on to." And they just sort of it's like,
Mm.
you know, it's like they were it's like I'll demo an album that way. Like I'll have just a bunch of stuff that I'm like, I like this, and I'll put it in the DAW, and I'll see what. But by the time I get to like where I'm recording it, they're actually songs. But this was like a just cut out the middle part where you actually turn them into songs. We'll just turn them into songs like as we record them, kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I guess
weird.
it's like a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's weird, especially for that time. Like it must have. It's I don't remember reading about how long it took or whatever, but like it feels like that must have for what they were working on then, which is just like that was like what the beginning of like digital recording, like it was quite an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine what it was like when it came out, right? And to be like have already been in the punk scene for a while, because that is like such an arrogant statement. And then I think that the kind of like in parentheses thing that we can look back on now for that album, right, is like the shape of punk to come, for better or for worse. And I
Yeah.
think that you're right. Like so much of that is like kind of been, um, like got eaten up by kids. Like everyone, when I got into the scene, like, and I was talking to like bands that were like my age, people who were playing, um, like Rami from 10,000 Leagues and Coherence, like that was like one of like their favorite records. Was like they loved the Refuse at that time, so it influenced a lot of like their playing in a lot of ways. Like that kind of shit was like easily spottable in like my scene,
Yeah.
even like knowing everything and outside of it. So it definitely is something that it's what I guess that I guess the idea I'm trying to form is like how much of like an album that you can hear and be like, man, this is just like kind of whatever, is like someone else's, especially like someone younger, is like, this is like the album that is going to shape my personality for the next 15 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like me without the Roots Undo. Like I played it for anyone else who would listen and they were like, haha, cool, man. And I'm like, no, this is like who I am now. Like it's one of those things. And other people are like, this kind of sucks. And I'm like, you're kind of not understanding what's happening. And it's like, but now you look back and like now kids kind of either do or don't. Like I'm not a lot. Circle Takes a Square is not like they're beloved, but it's like I definitely think that the love they get skews to like either longtime fans or like older people in screamo, and like of course they're like younger kids and stuff. But it's almost like the inverse thing, right? Because when that record came out and like so many people were like, screamo was having like this like 2000s like mini. I guess not mini. I mean, you can correct me, of course. Like this, like kind of like boom in the DIY and underground circuits. Like I can't think of a lot of other bands that were like, we're gonna ape this. Like we're gonna try this. I can tell you two bands that I know of that like literally were like, we want to be the Square clones, versus like how many people want to sound like Page 99 or like Orchid or Seisha. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As somebody who plays in a band that sounds a whole lot like Orchid, admittedly, I'd say that it's more accessible for sure.
Yeah.
Circle Takes a Square. They definitely, they had they had a very a cinematic and a sort of storytelling way of writing songs that wasn't just freak out from point A to point B, and that's you know, and
Yeah.
so it's just trying to wrap your head around how some of these songs came together is a feat in itself. So trying to emulate that would be a lot more difficult than being like, okay, first the guitar is going to play this by itself, and then the drums are going to get real hard, and then everything's going to stop and get clean for a minute, and then like
Right.
and then we're going to take it all home. Like that's easy to follow, right? And easy to
Mm-hmm.
emulate or recreate in your own distinct way, but like yeah, it's there's so much personality to that record. It's like you're
Yeah.
like you got this little goblin sounding person, and then you've got this like you know real like super like badass sounding person, and they're just like telling stories on top of each other, and the
Yeah.
music is just like it makes total sense, but then it makes no sense in combination with those, and it's like the way that that all works that's like magical. And I can even understand why people are like, it's I don't get it or I don't like it. And I'm not trying to say that in a like you're in a like your capacity to get it is not what it should be. I'm just saying like I could see somebody just being like, I don't want to bother with this, because it's like there's a there's a quality. It's like Funeral Diner is almost that, and the reason why I think they're almost that is because they are. It's the same. It's like D&D screamo, right? It's like there's more going on than just the songs, and it's like the it's telling a story like musically and lyrically, and there's just like you gotta either want to try to understand that or not. And I get if you're just not, if you're just like, nah, I'm good. Like play something that just like captivates me immediately or whatever instead,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I like both things, but you know.
Yeah. No, I do too. And I guess, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense that there's like, I guess there's specific density levels to each band and like their art, right? I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
I guess like that contrast between like a band like Orchid or like a band like Circle Takes the Square is like they're kind of leagues across from each other, even though like they may have like traveled in the same circles for like however brief,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I mean that makes sense, and I guess that I can't but wonder. This is kind of like a little pivot now. Is like like there's a big thing about that I've had with like how at least in like California, especially like how people interact with the scene and how like watching the inevitable trickle down of all these influences for like these bands we've known of forever, right? And like how kids are interacting and reacting to them, and like um, this just like kind of sort of apathetic nature to the intent of the message at times, I guess, like I know I'm like I've been beating this drum forever and I feel like I'm super annoying about it now, but like how much of like the like content and intent of a record like Chaos Is Me is like reaching a younger audience,
Yeah.
like lyrically, thematically, politically,
Yeah.
versus like you said, it's like I just want to hear something that like that grabs me,
Mm-hmm.
and like I see that a lot in the Southern California scene, because a lot of the stuff that's happening in our like quote unquote screamo scene is like it's very emotional driven, so it's a lot of like internalized sounds. It's like a lot of very like personal type of things, and there's like a few bands who have also put out songs that are a bit more of like a like anti-corporate, like anti-capitalist kind of thing, but those are a bit more like few and far between overall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't know if you just wanted to like maybe like pontificate on that a bit, because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot
So you're
since
saying
like last fall.
you feel like a lot of this is like we're back in the like I'm writing songs like as this is a version of like my diary kind of situation, and less like, hey, this is why I'm mad about the fucked up stuff in the world, like kind of thing.
I get maybe I'm not maybe this isn't even a fully baked idea yet, but I guess my thing is that like how much of the newer wave of like what's happening out here, at least, and like somewhat locally to me, is like more internal based. So yeah, I guess like diary lyrics,
Yeah.
right? But then a kid coming up to me and being like, "Oh my god, like they're wearing a gatefold shirt," you know? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like obviously it's like shitty of me because like I'm being like a dumb old head, but I'm like, I wonder if they know who Angela Davis is,
Yeah.
right? Which is like a crappy thing to think because I should never infer anything about my peers, right? But it's also
Right.
like a thing that I have seen enough
Well,
of
I
that to like be like, well, do they know who Angela
yeah.
Davis
I mean,
is? Like,
I think what I think the thing with what I'm hearing is that it's a question, it's not an accusation, and I think that's the distinction that's important, right? You're
yeah,
saying you're saying to yourself, I wonder if they know, as opposed to I bet they don't know. So
yeah,
you're keeping that space for them open. You're not being the old head that's just like you don't even know. To me that's the difference. So
okay,
like, but I get what you're saying, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. You were talking before about how there's a lot of there's overt, and then there's this sort of obfuscated, like I think these songs are about this stuff. And
yeah,
there's always like people online like, where's the political screamo? And I don't ever I always feel weird throwing my own hat into the ring, but I'm just like, what albums have you been listening to? Like,
yeah,
I don't I don't want to sit here and tell you like these songs on our newest album are about this, they're about this, they're about this, but like I just feel like if you just listen to it and read this, like you are going to know what these songs are about.
hmm,
And just because like I made up a language to title the songs, like
right,
those words mean something to me. And if I told you what they meant, it'd be real obvious what the songs are about. But like sometimes I feel a guilt about the things that I write about because I'm not sure they're mine to write about.
mm,
And that's a weird way to feel about the way that you perceive the world or the way that you move throughout the world is like
yeah,
when you're affected by the suffering of other people in such a way that you need to write a song to like scream about it or get it out, and for you to then feel some kind of guilt, or and I'm not like trying to like hide what I'm singing about. I'm
right,
just I'm just saying, like, read it, like, listen to it, read it. It's not like there's there's a story that I'm trying to tell, but there there are things that I think that it's clear. Like I mean, every story is some of the author in it, and
right,
every person who writes the story is affected by what's going on in the world around them, and that shows up in the pages, you know?
yeah,
Like everybody's everybody is, like The Matrix was a big one where everyone is like, "Oh, I can't believe
yeah,
how real this shit is." And it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
they were writing their existence into this story, and it made a great story, but it was like these are real things that people are worried about and they're dealing with, and
mm,
they're worried about like dealing with in the future. And you know what I mean? Like every time somebody's
yeah,
like, "Oh, this part of that movie is so real" or whatever, that's because a person wrote their pain into that. And
yeah,
like yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I think we get lobbed into that like
mm,
thing all the time. But and I'm just like all the way back to like the first 7 inch, you're like you can read
yeah,
about like you can read about people like being over medicated. You can read about like people being in the closet. You can read about like
hmm,
I mean I don't know. That
Yeah,
could,
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean I feel like sometimes that I feel like sometimes some of that stuff gets lumped in with like the sort of like, oh, these are just like personal lyrics, but it's like,
Yeah.
is it though? Because it is personal, as in like it happened to me specifically, but like, is it not political? Like when
Mm.
that's the goal of politicians is to erase your existence. Like, how is it not political to talk about stuff like, that affects like queer people and stuff? Like, how's that
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't know.
No, no, you're right. I think that's actually, thank you for your perspective. I think that's actually made me realize how much of my idea was more of like built around the fixed caricature of what I think kids in my scene are, as opposed to like who they are as living, breathing, thinking people. And I think I didn't even realize like how kind of reductive I was being. So that's actually you're right there. And I mean, I've literally said like that this music is inherently political no matter its lyrical content. Like, and I'm like, here I am complaining about a lack of politics. And like, I think that there's definitely room for more of a very
Vocalization.
strong vocal, not maybe not vocalization, but like a strong type of um, personal adherence to like hoping that we can like that the scene will like uphold the ethics and politics and values, right? Like I don't need
Sure.
someone to come up and be like, hey, I'm a leftist and I think leftist things. Like I don't, that's not what I'm really. I'm sure that's probably what it sounds like I'm searching for, but like, like in the same way that like if I saw some kids walking down the street, we're outside of the DIY venue, and then they see like people drinking in the alley, and they go up to them, they're like, "Hey man, go take that shit to your car." Like that's what like I want to see. That's like the
Yeah.
kind of hope I have. Like
Yeah.
the scene like nurturing and policing itself without it feeling
Like
um,
policing.
like policing. Yeah, without
Yeah.
it feeling punitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be punitive. Like I understand like being young and dumb and like being bored and like being in despair because the state of the world and the state of your life could be horrific. And like this is the escape. And sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you gotta like add stuff on top of that. But I think that the dialogue that needs to happen around that's really important too. But yeah, thank you, Edie. I think I just had an epiphany.
Well, that's wonderful. But like, I'm just going to reiterate that I think that you were being hard on yourself because like I said a minute ago, you were saying, do they instead of they don't. And I think that's the difference. So,
Yeah, no, you're
so
right.
you
You're
were,
right.
holding that like space and you were hoping, you were like, I hope I'm wrong or I'm on the wrong track or
Oh,
whatever,
I love being wrong.
Yeah. Oh, especially when I'm mad about something, right? Like I want to be
Hmm.
wrong. Like
Oh my god, yeah.
just tell me, please.
Yeah,
Uh,
like seriously, I'm
yeah.
hoping and I'm praying and like
Yeah.
and like that's not to say that there isn't so much other stuff that's like really good about what's happening in the scene directly, right? Like
Mhm.
seeing how I mean, I feel like in at least in the 2010s, I don't think anyone like was shitty about it, at least that I saw or heard directly. It could have been happening behind closed doors, but the way I see so many more like trans kids at shows, like, people of color at shows, like people dressing how they want, doing what they want. I feel like in like the 2000s, like even when I was in high school, like if I went to a show in like the kind of like, like the VFWS, like Ticketmastery kind of tour circuits for like the smaller venues, like there's a good chance I would see a naked white dude at some point. Like that was like
Yeah.
a thing for a long time, but now it's like and I was like, this is like the thing that people do to express themselves. And like now I'm like, that's really uncomfortable and creepy. And so it's
Yeah.
nice when like kids come and they're like, I'm gonna wear corpse paint to the show. And I'm like, hell yeah, like wear corpse paint to the show. Like that's cool, you know? Or like someone who's trans is like, I'll wear a sundress to the show tonight, And it's like, yeah, wear the sundress to the show tonight. Hopefully it doesn't get dirty, but like it probably will. But like things like that, and like that's like a huge positive. So like I didn't want to talk about my negative worries without, also like talking about like how much I'm so happy that people feel open and safe and comfortable in these
Yeah.
spaces.
To sort of like not necessarily like close a loop or whatever, but you were talking about like 2010 and you sort of, like the thing about
I know
2000.
I'm time skipping.
Yeah, the thing about back then, this is like when Coma Regalia started, so I can speak to that.
Yeah.
And the thing about then is like we went from like I feel like, and you were absolutely right. Like if there was a show that was happening in like 2001 or whatever, like like some band was going to show up once out of every 3 shows and be like, we play naked or whatever. And that's, I don't know, you can,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. And I have seen
Definitely.
photos that it is still happening. I don't know, maybe it's happening in different scenes. Good, whatever. You can take that how you want to take that. But like in 2010, like the thing is, like back then in 2001 or whatever, I feel like there was still a still a loose political call to be like anti-racist, to be in like to be like into animal liberation, to be into like different to be into like feminism and like
like anti-war.
sexual liberation, and anti-war. But then in 2010 when we started Coma Regalia and we started getting back out there, it was like seriously, it was just everybody was just there to party. Like it was not, and I feel like that's one of my biggest takeaways is when not that trans people don't like want to party, not that like people of color don't want to party, but I feel like when we started seeing more representation, that these principles became important to us again, that felt like they were missing, right? And like it was just something that happened that I didn't realize it was happening while it was happening, but slowly, like from 2010 when we were just playing around, we were going on these tours, and then to say around 2017 and a little bit, before I stopped like doing like 2 tours a year or whatever, we just started seeing like that all these shows weren't just an excuse for people to party. Like people would still party, or whatever, but it felt different again. And I was really happy for that. And I think that's absolutely not a coincidence in that whether it's the chicken or the egg, I don't know.
Right.
Like, I don't know if the fact that it's not a party, the fact that it's about something makes people feel more comfortable coming, makes people feel like this is a place for me, or if those people just start showing up and almost like demanding something more than just a party. I don't know which is which, but it feels good. I like it.
It does feel good. I wonder if it's also like the nature of the party has changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just like reckless revelry and abandon. Like there's at least more of a desire to find like the community and like inject purpose and everything.
you're not showing up to every show and there's a band called Weed Dad or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
like, or there's a,
Bong Mountain.
yeah. I mean, it's like, you're just like, oh, we're playing with one of those bands again. I wonder, like, oh, yep, no guitar picks in sight, but but like, I know that sound is coming back a little bit, but like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to think at least that the bands that are sort of sounding like that aren't they're not like that,
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean, I see sobriety becoming more and more popular every day for everyone, like not even just like people obviously like older like me and you are
mhm,
like, yeah, like we're not gonna do that shit anymore. But like, even younger kids were like, no, I don't want it. I don't need it. You
that's
know?
awesome. But here's the
I
thing
know.
too is this is how I can tell, even though I haven't been going to tungsten shows and whatnot, is because there's so many non-alcoholic beers at the store now.
Yeah.
Like you can just tell, like something's happening. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you can have a beer and you can drink it because you don't want to get drunk. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, that's weird, but
Yeah.
cool. It's like, options are nice, but
Yeah, definitely. And it does feel pretty cool.
yeah,
Um,
it's good to know that it's just like there's the it there are paths open, and that people are have their minds open to different ways of doing things.
yeah. Yeah. Which I think is actually like why maybe sobriety finds such a strong root in punk music, despite like there's the other side of the coin, right? Being like punk music is also like where people can go and just like cut loose in that particular way, right? Like it's that it's the ability to find that difference in yourself and like be different enough to just be like, no, that's actually not for me, and it's okay that it's not for me, and the environment is supposed to be one of like, yeah, okay, that's fine, because it's supposed to be an environment of acceptance, right? So
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it's just like it's wild to see. Like I see like I forget what they call it. They call them like dry bars or something. Like I see those pop up, like social spaces, right? Like your third spaces that are like not geared around alcohol at all, or like maybe they have like a CBD or like a THC like cocktail they make, but it's all like it's still like $20 for a Paloma that's really just like a seltzer with like a spritz of grapefruit. But it's like also it's like, okay, well, you know, the idea is nice, like the gist of it's cool.
Yeah. A social space for, people who are not trying to get intoxicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it, it's weird to think about stuff like that because like where I live, like there's just I don't know. Where I live is
Mm.
so weird. Like there hasn't been like like there like there's a place where bands can play and like bands play there and some people are like that was a really cool show, but I've like delivered food there when there was shows happening and like it's just a bunch of people getting drunk and hanging out and there happens to be a show. It's not what we're
Yeah.
thinking of like as a show, so I don't know. It's but this is just like a really weird town, like the college is right over there and people just
Right.
come here for 4 years and then leave and it's a different it's a different people every 4 years and
Right.
then there's just the town which has like a couple like factories in it and just like a bunch of like towny people that just like we have like some shitty bars that people go to and like there's no like every time somebody tries to make something for like young people or whatever it just like doesn't take off and I don't know,
Right.
it's weird. It's a weird place to and just imagining like a situation where people would hang out and not be is like it's foreign to me, from where I live, but it's like
Yeah.
sounds like a great idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
and I think it's just really like a cry for like, I mean, yeah, like people go and drink at shows, but like it's like a space for I don't know how I want to phrase this. It's like a space for people where they can go and drink, I guess, and also like it's a place where people don't have to go and drink, and like there's going to be music there. Like there's like such a desire for like a third place, right? Mm-hmm. Like not home, not work, like somewhere you can just kind of go away from like the two things that seem to be dominant factors or forces in your life, if you like want that. And I think that like with the resurgence of DIY and like music and punk and like even like screamo and all that stuff, like seeing more of it become more active, even if we do like lose places, like more places crop up. I think that like that's actually gonna change a lot of things for like the next like 4 or 5 years. Like I'm really excited to see how everything looks, to like tie it back into like the albums that we were talking about, like like what, like the kid who's like 14 and like his older brother's like, have you heard of this band like Infant Island? And he gives him Obsidian Wreath, right? Or like like that kid who's like, maybe she's online and she like sees the cover for We Have the Answer on like Bandcamp Daily and it's like, oh cool, I wonder what that's about, and like like just sets them off on the path, or like however that looks. Like I'm really interested to see how all that's gonna like look in the next like 10 years, because even now like people like romanticize so much of the wave. Right. I know everyone hates that term. I think it's super funny.
Which wave are we talking about?
I'm talking about the wave TM, like Touche Amore, Make Do and Mend.
Okay.
Pianos Become the Teeth.
Okay.
Who else? La Dispute.
For real, I thought that Loma Prieta was La Dispute for like 10 years or something.
Wait, that they were the same band, or that they were
so
like
the
same people?
I heard La Dispute, right? I heard both the names like around the same time. And I heard La Dispute and I was like, this is not for me. And every time somebody said Loma Prieta, I thought in my head of the music I heard that was actually La Dispute, and I thought to myself, why do people like that band? Oh my God. I kept it to myself for like 10 years. I was just like, people like bad music. And I kept it all to myself. And then somebody, like was just like, this album, blah, blah, blah. And and I was like, wait, it doesn't sound like this or that or whatever. And they're like, no, it's like really like good, just like classical, like sounding screamo, like classic sound. And I was like, no way. And then they were like, you sound like you're describing La Dispute. And they cracked it like right there. And they were like, so are you going to go and listen to like every Loma Prieta album now? And I was like, I'm in too deep. I can't. I'm in too deep. I can't listen to it now. And I still haven't listened to Loma Prieta.
That's I get it. That's understandable. Oh my God. I mean that's like the cognitive dissonance that's like just been baked into the name now for you.
Right? Now it's just if I listen to Loma Prieta, it's like now it's just the whole fact that I thought that it was totally this other band is not as funny if I go and listen to them and I'm like, whoa, they're actually sick. Like,
yeah,
it remains hysterical to me that I made that mistake for so long as long as I don't like challenge that mistake, as long as I don't go and listen to Last City or whatever and be like, oh shit, this is actually sick, or whatever.
Yeah. Damn, that's really crazy. That's
it's such a silly thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So silly. But
I will say that even if you don't want to listen to it, if you're listening to this and you're curious about Loma Prieta, you really want to know about Loma Prieta, go listen to our LP as your EP, because that's like that era before their other vocalists left the band. Like that's like an era of Loma that I always think about. I love their new stuff too. Like Loma is like a very important band to California screamo kids, and like they'll always be really important to me, and like that was a hilarious story. But I would be remiss if I didn't say like early Loma is just like bananas.
Yeah,
now I'm wondering if I have now been infected, Edie, and like I'm gonna think about I'm gonna think about a lot of you when I listen to Love.
It's so silly.
It is. That's really funny though. I've done that same thing too, though, and I can't. I'm trying to think of the band that I did it with, but it was like Alta or something. I thought Alta was. Oh my god. I thought Alta was like some other like kind of emo-y riffy band from like the Midwest, and not like this like real
like Enta,
high-pitched screamo band. But
yeah,
maybe who am I thinking? It was like some band from Texas who sounded like they sounded like what an Urban Outfitters would do to design a screamo band.
Oh no.
Yeah, they were like, it was like one of those things where I'm like they like one of their first I remember following them online because it was like cool new screamo band, and they were like, yeah, and like we're collaborating with this t-shirt company and like this merch line, and I'm like, this is weird. I don't like this anymore. And I was like, and then I was like, man, I don't know why kids are going crazy about Ulta. Like they seem like sellouts. And then I saw the Skeletal Lightning Fest, and I was like, oh, that's Ulta. And I was like, oh no, the time wasted.
That's funny. That reminds me of like they, Trent Reznor just made that announcement about the video game and the clothing line, and I was like teasing Jason because that's like Jason's favorite band, and I was like, come get your man, like this is nonsense, and Jason was like,
I already have the NFT.
Jason was just basically like, you don't have to buy it, you don't like take it or leave it, but like, I mean, Jason will never. I can never make Jason suffer enough for what he said about The Cure. So like, there's that. Like,
I don't know if you want to out Jason, but what did Jason say about The Cure?
He's just like they're the most boring band ever or something.
How?
Like, they're awful.
That's by far the Smiths.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's. I mean, I'm using a sound bite of Robert Smith telling somebody that he would never want to be knighted because what fucking bullshit that shit is in like an album coming up. So like, I'm like, Uncle Robert keeps it real. Like,
Uncle Robert's sick.
Yeah. So
that's crazy. Damn,
yeah,
Jason,
I'll give Jason.
I get it. I mean, you don't like what you don't like, but
yeah. He said that that's Temple of Angels
really
was like if The Cure was good. And I was like, yeah. I mean, first of all, they don't sound anything alike, but
if The Cure was good is an insane sentence on its own.
Absolutely.
Like that's crazy. They have, even if you don't like their discography, like they undoubtedly have hits. Like, come on.
Yeah, I think it's wild. Like, I mean, this is like a band that has written songs that like the world could not do without, in my opinion, but like,
yeah, for sure. They've influenced like entire subcultures.
Yeah.
Both like aesthetically and sonically.
Exactly. But yeah, it's okay, Jason. You just gotta.
That's right, Jason.
I mean, and I do like Nine Inch Nails too, but it's just like that's my thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be able to say some mean things about Trent Reznor because I mean, let's be real. Like when you started looking like a jock bro and not like a skinny pale dude in a see-through shirt, like I checked out,
Yeah.
Like I checked out. So
that's totally fine. I think I had the same thing with even like I forget when the picture was from, but when I saw that picture of James Hetfield in flip-flops and sandals on Rodeo Drive with like a bunch of Prada bags.
Oh my.
I was like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to listen to Injustice for All in the same way ever again. Like, and this was like decades ago, right? And I still like have major side eye when I'm like, I really want to listen to Ride the Lightning, but I don't think I can listen to Ride the Lightning right now. Like, I have to be in like a very specific mood for Metallica now. Whereas before I was like, yes, riffs, but like now I'm like,
That is hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, like those riffs, my plays on those riffs bought this man a Gucci belt. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's
What you gonna do? Yeah.
yeah. There's well, there's not much we can do. You know, we're
No.
the we're, we're the hoi polloi, as it were. So
It's wild. Like when you just imagine, like, I mean, I'm just some little kid reading Thrasher magazines, and I find out about some album called Master of Puppets, and I'm
yeah,
like, my mind is blown. And then like you're just watching, like, 30 years later, you're watching Some Kind of Monster, and you're like, geez, like these people are just like no one in the history of the world's ever had their head up their own ass so far. Like, what is going on?
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I watched, I think like 15 minutes of Some Kind of Monster, and I was like, oh, if I gotta make sure that I can at least try to still listen to Metallica. If I get through this whole thing, I'm never listening to Metallica again. And
Yeah.
I have a very deep love for Metallica that I developed later on in life, and I'm like, I can't do this to myself. Like
Yeah.
it's already. There's some things I just kind of gotta. I mean, I always think of this is like really random, I guess, but like, did you ever watch Hey Arnold?
No.
So, but are you familiar with like
Yeah, I
Hey
know
Arnold?
what
It's like
you're
a
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
There's an episode where like the dorky kid, his name's like Eugene, and like he's like the dweeb that everyone's got a soft spot for him or whatever. He's like super into this TV show, and it's like called The Abdicator, and it's about this dude who's like fights for justice and the little guy, and then he goes because they're filming a scene near his house, and he goes and he finds out the dude's just like a huge whiny crybaby with a stunt double, and it just like breaks him in like a really specific way. And I was like, this is like, I was like, I didn't think that this would ever happen to me, but that's what happened with Metallica.
Yeah. That's what happened. That's what happened to me with Suzanne Vega when I like found out that she's a crazy like Zionist.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
That,
mm,
like, God damn it.
yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, Mark
Oh,
Hamill,
yeah.
Jack Black,
Yeah. Dude, yeah,
no.
yeah, this whole thing has been the way, how revealing it is like really been kind of rough in a
Yeah,
number of ways,
yeah, yeah.
Like,
You're like,
yeah, like Jack
it's
Black, especially, I was like, Jack Black too, man? Like, come on. Like, damn,
it's
that's
real. I feel like it's
that's a hard
real
one.
easy to be on the right side of this situation, and when
Mm-hmm.
it's when these people's money gets threatened,
Yeah,
they'll do anything. I mean, I don't
yeah.
know. It's wild.
It's genuinely insane, and it's nice to see the zeitgeist shifting. I mean, I don't know if you saw today. I don't know. Hopefully this isn't like distressing. I've been making this joke lately. Do you know like how like all the therapy speak is kind of like people are kind of done with it now, and like basically everyone's like making fun of like people who are very particular about therapy speak because it's
Oh
just been
yeah.
kind of used to like people just use it basically now to like get away with being a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember for like a few months people were doing that whole like you have the space to receive some potentially harmful information thing,
Yeah.
and like I was just like, this is not helpful or engaging in any way. I was about to do that to you, but like the whole thing with like Iran and Israel happening like today, like it's just like the paradigm shifts here. Like there's a huge turn coming, and like I know we've already lived through like a couple centuries of insane world history in the span of like 10 years, but we're doing it again. So
Well, I do not know what you're referring to because I have spent the entire day up until about 3 drawing,
right, okay,
and like I'm gonna be pitching a graphic novel soon with Brendan Stevens, who played in the band Overo, so
Oh,
everybody
that's so
wish us luck.
awesome.
But
Good luck,
and
both of you.
I just been deep into that, not on,
Yeah.
hardly on my phone. Like that's why,
No, that's fair.
when I checked in with you, that was like the most I've been on my phone really.
No, I think it's for the better right now. I think
Uh,
today's not a good day to be on the internet.
yeah, and then at like
Um,
3, I was like I have to leave the house, so I left
mm,
the house for a minute. I bought like a few comic books and sat out on my deck and read comic books until just now. So, uh,
that's awesome.
yeah,
After this, I got some chores I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna try and go outside and touch grass.
yeah,
So
touch the grass, as they say. But
yeah, I will say that we've been, me and my partner, doing, when we do go outside and like, it's like daylight hours or whatever. Like, it's been really nice to go just like sit under a tree on like a slightly breezy day and like kind of watch the tree move and listen to it. It's honestly like very calming. So I highly recommend that if possible to anyone
hmm
who
I
can find
got.
a tree to sit under.
I just have. I live. I live on this street that is. It's just a U off of a county road, and
Okay.
behind me is like is there's houses, but it's like they're like 2 streets away, and
Right.
all the land behind me was attached to our house, so it's like there's nothing there. It's just up woods, and so the we have an extremely robust woods full of birds, and so I just sit out on my deck and I listen to all these birds chirping, and it's lovely. I know a lot of what, like I'm like, oh, that's this kind of bird, that's a tufted titmouse. Oh, that's, the pileated woodpecker. Like I know a lot of them, not all of them. My kids are really good with that, but there is a large there is a large woodpecker that is around, and
Oh, cool.
I named it Peter Pecker, um, and and
Big pecker?
it's and its mate I named Mary Jane, and so like this bird flies around and like yells at me from different trees, and
That's
I think
funny.
this bird likes me. That's my headcanon, is that me and this bird are friends. It just like flies around and it goes up in this, like it lives in the tree in my front yard, and it goes up when I'm on the deck. It goes up in the tree in my neighbor's backyard, and it yells at me until I like look up, and like if I just am sitting there, it'll just keep yelling at me. And then when I look up and I say, "Hey, Peter," then it'll fly away. But it will yell at me like for a long time until I acknowledge it, and then it's like, "Okay, bye."
That's so cute. That's so sweet. I mean, birds are like, they have like a lot of personality to them. I know that maybe people, because they move around so much, I guess people don't get to spend a lot of time with like just one. But there's so many stories of like, if a bird has a place it goes to all the time and you go there and you're nice to it or like try to give it seeds or even just like hang out, like it starts to recognize you after a time. I know more famously like crows,
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously will like hit
Befriend
people and they're
people.
like
Yeah, they'll straight
befriend
up.
people. And not
Yeah,
just like a crow, like multiple crows will be like, oh, they're a part of our murder now.
yeah,
Like, so I don't know. I think we should all befriend birds more
yeah.
because honestly, the birds are getting bigger and this should be a cause of concern. I've been the only one ringing the alarm bell. And I think that we are not too long away from just having pterodactyl sized birds again.
We're gonna
So
need them in the war with the Terminators, with the
that's what I'm
robot
saying.
dogs, and
Exactly. Yeah,
like,
imagine like trying to fight one of those like T-300s, right, on your own with machine guns and bombs. No,
mm,
imagine a 10-foot wingspan woodpecker
yeah,
coming and just blasting through buildings. Like, come on.
that's what I'm talking
Damn.
about. Yeah,
That
I'm
would be a
a.
great comic book, Edie. Not that I'm trying to like, backseat coach here, but
We yeah, I mean, like I'm feeding them. I'm trying to get some, protein in that diet.
there
We're
you go.
bulking them up.
Yeah. Yeah. And figure out how to like give them like razor blades on their wings.
Outfit them with some gear too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like a bird jerkin. Man. Well, Edie, thank you so much for letting me do this, and thank you for running that raffle. That was like really sweet. And, like it really means a lot to me that one of the people I look up to the most in the scene is like taken this so seriously and like been so adamant about advocating for people in like Palestine and Gaza. So thank you again. That was our conversation together, me and Edie. I hope you really enjoyed the time that we got to spend with each other today and the time that we spent with you today. If you're out there and you're struggling with anything, please know that the scene and this music is about you. It's about your struggles. It's about liberation. It's about freeing ourselves from oppression. As my friend Biggie recently said, I don't know if it's his quote, but it's one that's been sticking in my mind. Be ruthless with systems, be kind to people. Take care and do good things.